That's fine.
Yeah, me and Julian didn't really do any preparation. The only thing I prepared was an opening statement.
You guys aren't going to hit me with a duo spirit bomb right off the bat?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what Julian prepared, but
Okay, we're live, so if you guys want to introduce yourselves first, and then if you guys have opening statements, well, I know Hampton has one, so you guys could start with that, I guess. Whoever wants to introduce themselves first.
I would love to.
Okay.
My name's Tanner.
Cool.
Wait,
Hi, Tanner.
Thank you.
Obviously.
Oh, crap.
We're gonna keep going.
I had the stream open in the background. It was totally throwing me off. Okay, never mind. I'm good to go.
Okay, I guess I'll introduce myself. I am Hampton. I'm an anarcho-capitalist, unironically. Yeah.
I'm Julian, and I'm unironically an objectivist.
I'm Tanner. You can find me at LeftnotLib on YouTube. My political journey's been a little bit stilted lately, but right now I would consider myself more of a libertarian socialist.
Okay, so I guess I could start with my opening statement. So it's just one sentence or two. Okay, so in this debate, we will be defending capitalism and will be set about dismantling socialism. Capitalism is stemmed from the axiom of human nature, while socialism levels this in favor of the collective.
For sure. So let's get started on the first topic. Let me pull up the list we had.
I'm pretty sure it was like the labor theory of value.
I don't really want to go into LTV because I'm not super nuanced on that. Well, but we agreed on capitalism is exploitative, capitalism cannot exist without a state, and taxation is theft. And I'd also like to talk about...
Oh, wait, no, we can't do that. We can't do without a state because it was originally going to do a 1v1, right? But it changed originally to a 2v2. But Julian, who's an objectivist, his ideology involves a state. But
frickin' statists, dude.
Okay, but what about the calculation problem too? I mean, I think it would be very important to go into the labor theory of value, seen as it's like Marxist theory, whether you're a Marxist or not. All of his exploitation theory and everything else derives from that labor theory value. So I would find it very important to.
So I think this kind of goes into. Let's start with capitalism is exploitative. You want to go there first?
Sure. Let me pull up my notes.
Alrighty. So my take on why capitalism is exploitative. So first off, I like to call my first argument a million little dictatorships, and it's fundamentally the concept that in order to exist as a person, you have to subject yourself to the will of a capital owner. I see this as fundamentally unjust, and here's one distinction I want to draw before we even get into any real debate. I am a utilitarian first and foremost. The only justification something needs is because it creates the most human good, utility, happiness, pleasure, long-term, and decreases human pain. That is all you need to justify a claim. If you take any issues with that, that's what I base my stuff on. So
okay.
Everyone's cool with that?
All right. So I guess I could state Marx's exploitation theory. So the theory says that the capital steals the value from the workers, that the workers, specifically that the value the workers create to make a profit. Essentially, the workers won't be paid their worth in a capitalist system, assuming that the labor theory of value is correct. So there's one major contradiction with his exploitation theory is that Marx's thesis on alienation, it says that you, like as a worker, you're not embodied in your labor because the capitalist is like stealing it from you. And this is like in his words, not exactly, but you know what I mean? And that's a contradiction because if you're not embodied with your labor, are you being exploited into this? If you're not embodied within your labor, it's not your surplus value. And if it's not your labor, then you can't be stolen from, essentially.
Alrighty, I think I don't really see the inherent connection between wage theft and...
well, it's not wage theft we're talking about, it's exploitation.
Well, first, let me get into this. I don't like to talk in hard binary language because everything's a gradient. I think capitalism is more exploitative than the system I advocate for.
Okay, so where can I go with this? Okay, so the exploitation theory okay, let me continue with this. So the exploitation theory is derived like, the capitalist is stealing the workers' profit. Well, in fact, the workers are not creating the profit. What the workers are creating is the product itself that is then on going to be sold for profit. So if I agree to the responsibilities of an interdependent exchange and its costs and its benefits, I can't be stolen from, especially if I agree on it. So if you, a worker, agree to work for a capitalist, you're not being stolen from, because you're voluntary. You're agreeing to you're agreeing to an exchange for goods and services for a wage in return. So in what you're doing, I think. If you so do you agree that the worker or the capitalist is stealing the profits from the worker?
To an extent, but I'm nuanced on this. Mind if I explain?
Go ahead.
So my take largely on this is I don't care if you think it's stealing, because that's definitions, while we can act as though they're objective, are ultimately going to matter to the individual. And stealing is one of those where it's hard to define between people, especially if you view through a Marxist lens or an Austrian lens. And specifically for that, I would just like to state that I believe that a capitalist is an unnecessary leech on a system that could otherwise better serve human need. Democratically owned workplaces better serve the people who work at them and are better for society as a whole. Whether or not you believe the capitalist is stealing their wages by not paying them the full value of what is sold is irrelevant to me. I believe that democratically owned workplaces meet human happiness better than any other form of human organization.
Okay, so a couple of things I'd want to address to that. According to the calculation problem, just completely explains why capitalists are needed. And second of all, your subjective evaluation on worker happiness in the workplace, if it was democratically owned, can't not be objectively said.
Actually, it can. I have some sources on this one.
I know empiricism won't help you because it has to be true across everyone, and it isn't. So, anyways, to move on.
Wait. Can we take a stop on that one?
Sure.
So, I can demonstrate empirically that worker co-ops are more successful, and workers
So here's my thing with worker co-ops. I don't have a problem with worker co-ops at all. I think they're fine. It's just the fact that people who want them mandated is what I have the problem with. It's more on the morality aspect of it. But continue.
That's where that's perfect. That's where I would love to have this conversation. Why do you think mandating worker co-ops is immoral?
Because why should I start a business just to have it forcibly handed over to my workers?
So this is more of a philosophical question. I don't need to go into this because I think utilitarianism justifies it. But in order to believe that you create a business, you have to believe in the libertarian theory of personhood. Do you know what this is?
Not exactly.
So again, I'm really into philosophy, so this is kind of the grounds I take most debate from. It's the idea that we are thinking rational beings outside of any environmental or genetic factors. It's the idea that when you make a decision, when you do something, anything you do that you are consciously doing, you are making a choice. And that sounds really basic to everyone until you look at determinism.
Okay, so you're bringing up different terms. So what exactly is your point here?
My point is, let's take an example. When Jeff Bezos wants to start an Amazon, there is nothing inherent to Jeff Bezos that makes him start an Amazon. If I were born to Jeff Bezos' parents on July 4th, 1968 or whatever, I would have started an Amazon. There is no thinking.
Just because you're born into it doesn't make you inherent to it. It's the fact that they choose to give it to you or not. If I'm born into a wealthy family, I'm not inherent to their wealth unless they give it to me. Because they can easily write me out of my will. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're born into that class of family or not. It doesn't matter because you're not inherent to anything. We can take a look from my lens specifically. More philosophical stuff is what Julian's better at. But from my view is that the only thing we're inherent to is life, liberty, and in the pursuit of happiness and private property. We are not inherent to anybody else's belongings. Like you're not.
I think we're splitting in different directions on this one.
Okay. I'm just explaining. I'm just explaining how we're not inherent to anything, and how inherent and how you said that when you're born in a high class family, if you're a descendant to Jeff Bezos, you're his kid, that automatically makes you inherent to.
Oh, that's not even what I'm saying. I think we're dodging past each other.
Sorry, that's my bad. Then it sounded like you implied that.
Sorry. Do you know what determinism is?
Not exactly.
It's the idea that, let's take a simpler example. If I took an 8-ball pool, right, and I measured to an infinite amount exactly how heavy each ball was, exactly how much force I was applying, the humidity, how the slant of the table, the wind in the air. If I could measure that infinitely and then apply a force, I could measure to an infinite amount where each ball would be, correct?
Okay.
Now, we apply that lens to the entire universe.
How does this have anything to do with exploitation?
I am so
Okay, yeah. Let me connect this back for you guys because we're way out of left field. So when you say that Jeff Bezos is entitled to the fruits of his labor, who is it to say that anyone is entitled to what they do?
Jeff Bezos is entitled to what so Jeff Bezos is not, I mean, I guess you could say entitled when he puts himself into that position, but what you're entitled to in like a capitalist structure is your inputs into that structure. Jeff Bezos inputs a lot of intellectual effort. He inputs a lot of I guess his currency, his money into that, and he should reap the fruits of what he does, of what he inputs. The output should always be greater, and it is, and it has been. So,
alrighty. So, getting into that one, I think we're going left field out of this again. I'm looking at this from an absolute top-down perspective. This has nothing. It doesn't
matter what you're looking from it with. We're exchanging. We're having a discourse of ideas. It doesn't matter. We can't be having a discourse of ideas through different perspectives. We're not going to get anywhere from that.
Do you believe that determinism is correct? That we can fundamentally say that everything would work out this way if we can measure it all?
No. I mean, I follow the Austrian school. I can.
No, this is not a political ideology. This is a scientific view of the world. Determinism, the idea that if we measured everything, we could figure out how everything would work out.
That's based off empiricism. And again, I follow the Austrian school, and it rejects empiricism. So no, I wouldn't.
This is not an economic argument.
I know. Okay. You've already said that twice.
I'm sorry. We're missing each other.
Okay,
here.
so here, can we backtrack to like my original argument, because we stemmed away and we haven't gotten anywhere. So to restate, my argument was that what's the word? Not the calculation problem. The exploitation theory is that the capitalist is stealing the profits from the worker. So the agreement of the capitalist is to other people. The agreement of the capitalist is to other people and is none of the concern because of the workers, because they're not involved within the exchange. Basically, the workers are involved with an independent exchange. They're involved with the exchange between the capitalist, So there's two exchanges that you guys tend to conflate. There's an exchange between the capitalist and the worker, and the capitalist with the marketplace. What you're trying to make synonymous is the exchange between the capitalist and the worker, and the capitalist with the marketplace. You're trying to make that as one, which you can't, because they're two interdependent exchanges. So let me put into an example. So if a farmer pays you $30 to plant an apple tree, that's an independent exchange. Essentially, the exchange between the capitalist and other people is not involved with the worker. Therefore, nothing is being stolen from the worker because they're involved with an independent exchange, and they're simply just not involved with that exchange. So,
mind if I break rank here?
Sure.
We could talk about this, but I think ultimately it's a moral discussion. In all morality,
it's not a moral discussion. It's from like a practical discussion.
Do you not believe that the definition of stealing is a moral definition?
What?
Okay. I'm trying to prove that it is immoral to privately own means of production, correct? Let's go all the way back to the beginning.
Okay. Well, if you were trying to prove that, why didn't you present that as your position in the first place?
We got mixed up in a bunch. I'm sorry. I'm like nervous and not doing a great job right now.
I'm curious as to why you think it's immoral to own private property.
Sure. I can go into that. All right.
Okay.
So my morality is based on the function that we should maximize human happiness, right? We all agreed on that earlier. I believe privately owning property under one person does not maximize human happiness.
Can I interrupt here?
Sure.
Well, okay. So if we're going through a subjective view on morality, if you're gonna state your subjective view on morality as an absolute, you can't do that.
You agreed with me earlier.
Well, I didn't. You stated a definition, and I just said okay. So let's take a look at morality from an objectivist view. Like, I'm an ANCAT, but I do love objectivism. The objectivist view is that the moral purpose in morality is basically to pursue your happiness, and if pursuing your happiness is starting a business or having a plot of land and have people work for you, if that is what man desires, then man should have the ability to do that, and that is completely moral if it does not infringe on other people's rights. So we have two different views on morality. So we have to come to a consensus on morality to really go any further, because if we're not, it's just kind of going to go in circles and it wouldn't really get anywhere.
Alrighty. Utilitarianism is kind of what we build politics around. I don't know what.
Well, just because we build politics around something doesn't mean it's an absolute. Like, if that was true, then why would we disagree with politics? Why would people have different views on things?
Because some people are wrong.
Well, just because your view is your view doesn't make it right. If that was
no,
true,
I agree with that.
If that was true, then there wouldn't be any opposition to it. But there is, obviously, because we're having this conversation. So you can't say that.
So let me just circle back. Do you not agree with the goal of human morality is to maximize happiness and minimize pain?
I think, I can put it in objective terms and say if this comes.
Yeah, I can put it.
Or, yeah.
Do you want me to? Okay. Morality is an objective absolute stemming from the nature of existence, from the fact that man has to act in order to survive, and a right is a moral principle covering a certain thing. So I can go more into depth what that certain thing is if.
So like our moral purpose, like, wait, what was the question again? It was like, what defines morality? Or
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So
why do you disagree with the idea that utilitarianism is
Oh,
not
okay.
what
What
morality
entitles
is?
you? What entitles you to things like medical care? Like what entitles you to that?
we're not.
The only, I mean, we can get into that, but we're kind of.
Wait, is that not what isn't utilitarianism? Okay, hold on. There's two words that are very similar. I know there's like
Utilitarianism. Give it a
Okay,
Google
that's-
if you want.
Is that what? Okay, hold on. Let me.
I'll drop it in the private chat.
Okay, yeah, fuck.
Okay.
There's two
So,
words that are similar that
I guess I
probably
could
mixed
say,
up.
I guess I could state like what our moral purpose is. I think our moral purpose is to pursue our happiness. I mean that this is again from an objectivist view, which I can LARP as an objectivist, as an ANCAP, because that's easily possible. So I guess I'll do that from a moral and philosophical point of view. I think our moral purpose is to pursue our happiness, and I already went into depth of like an example of pursuing our happiness and how capitalism, or I guess this is another whole position that capitalism is simply human nature. But we don't have to go into that now. Again, you still haven't even addressed what I previously said. We kind of moved on without having a discourse of even the previous position I stated, was that you're conflating two exchanges, and that the exchange between the worker and the capitalist is is independent, so that the worker can't be stolen from if it's not their profit, because they're not involved with this other exchange that happens between the capitalist and the market. Can you address that?
Yes, for sure. So, first off, I think the only justification you need is that it creates more human happiness, but we're not going to even.
Well, that's not what we're talking about.
That's not what we're talking about. I'm aware.
Okay.
I'm aware. So, do you believe that if people just stopped doing work, society would still function?
No.
Cool. So you're saying that in order to have the values, the commodity values that we need in order to have a successful society, move up the Maslow hierarchy of needs, we need to produce those things.
Wait, a value to value what? What are you saying?
Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We need food. In order to have food, someone has to produce it, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We need, and if we can move up the hierarchy, you want to be comfortable.
Hierarchy of what?
Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's a concept that we have a hierarchy of needs that we satisfy as.
Like marginal utility. Okay.
To an extent, I guess that.
Well, that sounds like it. Like it's the first unit. You have like set amount of units, and the more units you fill, the more you're satisfied, and the less things become valuable. But that's like for the labor theory value. But that, okay, yeah, go on.
So we need to produce things in order to have it. Therefore, despite the fact that I agree with to an extent with the Austrian idea that value is created by trade, I believe there is truth to that. But in order to have mutually beneficial trades, you have to have goods that have undergone labor.
Okay. Well, okay. So if that's the case, then why do we value water? Why do we value land? None of them has undergone labor.
Okay. You're locked in a room, and you can't. Not you're locked in a room. You're paralyzed. There's water sitting across the table from you. you don't value that water at all because you can't drink it.
You have to, because if you don't, you will die.
Well, the value of that water, well, you value water. Here, we're missing up terms here. You value that water, but that water has no value to you unless you access it.
No, it has an inherent value to you because you need it. It doesn't. It can have less of an inherent value because your needs are because your thirst for water is already satisfied. But either way, you're going to have an inherent value to it. You being paralyzed is irrelevant to what we're talking about.
Do you think something has value to you if you can't access it?
So just because you can't physically access it doesn't mean it doesn't have value. Like I cannot physically access diamonds right now because I do not have a car to drive to there. That doesn't mean I don't value it. That's such a stupid comparison. I don't want to be like this, but it's a really stupid comparison because just because you don't have access to something doesn't mean you don't value it.
No, you do value it, but it has no value to you. Do you see my line here?
Okay, you do value it, but it has no value to you. That's a contradiction in and of itself.
So you want water, right?
Mm-hmm.
But water you cannot access cannot sate your thirst.
How does that mean it has no value to you? We're
conflating two different types of value.
What types of value? You haven't even stated the types of value. You just kind of gone on hoping that I automatically know what you're talking about. You can't just.
I'm sorry, that's on me. I'm not.
So what this is creating. So this is becoming problematic because what I'm thinking is that you're stating a contradiction, seen as that if you cannot access it, you does not value it, but you already value it because you need it. That's a contradiction.
I'm conflating value here. Okay. I'm sorry.
So you really haven't even addressed my point though, like my original point to conflating exchanges, like dependent exchanges. You haven't even really like addressed that. So. I mean, I'll say it again. I mean, like, could you address it again? Because, like you said, labor is needed to make the things that we need, and you gave a hierarchical like structure of like of value, like based on need, right? But that doesn't answer the position that I'm stating. That doesn't contest to the position I'm stating because I agree to. Yeah, we need things in order to survive. We need labor to make those things in order to survive. But that still doesn't answer the question. And if you're going to base your entire argument off of morals, well, economics isn't really a moral argument. It's a theoretical.
Wait, you don't think economics is a moral argument?
I said it's not really a moral argument. You can't base your entire ideology, or you can't base your entire argument off of morals because
we found the breakpoint. I'm sorry. Here we found the breakpoint. Economic is 100% a moral argument. The distribution of goods is in every way a moral argument.
So talking about the labor theory of value is moral. It has everything.
Yes.
How?
Stealing is a moral definition.
Do you know what the labor theory of value is?
Yes, labor is produced by value, but we're not really. I'm sorry, value is produced by labor.
How does that have anything to do with morals?
I think I can explain where we're going across each other. I'm trying to argue from a perspective of this makes the most good, and we're kind of getting bogged down in the minutia.
Well, like you can't.
This is why I didn't want to argue labor theory of value.
Listen. You can't argue from your perspective as an absolute. You have to take into account of other perspectives, right? You can't.
I think your perspective on morals is wrong, and we can debate that if you'd like.
Well, we're not debating morals right now. We're debating economic theory. I mean, so this is really we're getting stuck. You haven't answered my question in the of the two dependent exchanges.
I'm going to be dead honest with you. I don't understand what you're asking there. What is the what prescriptive judgment are you making? Not descriptive. What prescriptive judgment are you making?
Okay, so let me restate it. So, okay, so I pay you. You are a farmer, and I pay you $30 to plant an apple tree. That is a dependent exchange between me and you. I go to sell that apple tree, which is fully grown. I rip the roots out of the ground, and I go sell it in a market for $60. Am I stealing labor from you? No. The reason being is because it's a separate exchange. There's two dependent exchanges: the exchange between the farmer and the capitalist, and the exchange between the capitalist and the marketplace. The farmer cannot be stolen from in the second exchange, meaning the exchange between the capitalist and the farmer, because the farmer isn't even involved with that exchange in the first place.
Alrighty. A second exchange could not occur without the first exchange.
Okay. What does that have anything to do with being stolen from?
Therefore, the farmer is entitled to the work he has done.
He's entitled. If he was entitled to the work he has done, then why did he sell it in the first place?
Coercion.
Coercion by who?
Work or die.
That's okay. So work or die isn't an argument for coercion, because coercion is the use of force or threats enacted on someone to you, or enacted by someone to you. So coercion would be like, an example would be like, if you better give me $10 or I'll shoot you. That's coercion.
I can find the coercion in this
system. Listen to me, and let me finish. What's happening in what it is nature. If nature is coercive, then calling capitalism a coercive system is not exclusive, or coercion is not exclusive to capitalism. Because if you by nature are forced to work, if you do not feed yourself, you will die, or if you do not work, you will die. If that's coercive by nature, because nature is enacting that coercion upon you, then can you really say that that's exclusive to capitalism? Because the same is held with socialism and communism. So, what are you going to say?
So, under a system without decommodifying the basic human needs we need to live, the coercion is in the form of the protection of those commodities.
What?
Let me explain. Okay. When I die of starvation because I'm not willing to sell my labor, why do I die? I don't die because I don't have access to food. There's food sitting in the grocery store across the street. I die because of the threat of being arrested or killed should I attempt to access that food.
Then don't steal it in the first place. Again, you're conflating. You're conflating these. The threat of if you steal, like your example, the threat of you steal and you die or you get arrested is coercive, obviously, but that doesn't make capitalism coercive. Again, we're talking work or die. Stealing from a farmer's market is not work or die. That's stealing from a farmer's market. So you have to demonstrate the position. No, it isn't. If it is, okay, so by nature it is, okay, because nature forces you. But to say that work or die by nature is exclusive to capitalism is complete and utter bullshit, and you know it. Because you have to work to feed yourself. So,
you know why you have to work to feed yourself?
Why?
Because the human needs we access are gatekept behind money. If they weren't, people could access stuff and live.
To attain those in the first place, you'd still have to work. It doesn't matter if they're gatekept by money.
No, someone has to work.
Okay.
You do not. I know that.
So
I'm not saying like
your entire system is going to relying on a set of people. So your very existence is reliant on those set of people to fulfill your needs. So does that make you entitled to their labor to supply your needs? Is that really moral?
Alrighty, let's get into this. The reason I made that claim, I don't think that's a moral system. I don't think stealing, within frameworks, is not moral.
We're not talking about stealing.
I don't think stealing is moral.
We're not talking about that.
However, the reason you work or die is not a result of nature. Yes, you do starve to death if you don't acquire food. But the reason you cannot acquire food is because you cannot steal. And I agree with that. That's a solid progression there for me. But in and of that,
well, you're basing your premise off a conclusion. Like if you're basing your premise off a conclusion that I have to work, if I do not work to provide myself, I will die. The capital system forces me to work for a capitalist, so therefore, if I do not work for them, I will die. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the fact that nature coerces you into working, or you will die. It doesn't matter if those necessities are commodified and gatekept by prices. That doesn't change the fact that it isn't work or die. What I'm saying is that nonetheless, you have to work or you die. And you explain to your system, but certain people will work to attain those.
Actually, mind if I interrupt here?
Okay, fine.
I'm only making that point as a counterfactual to the idea that work or die is inherent to nature. I do not subscribe. I do not propose that as my system.
Okay.
You understand the distinction there?
What is the distinction? Because you haven't made it clear.
Alrighty. First off, let me apologize because I have been noodling all over and had trouble sitting down and stuff because this hasn't mapped out how I put my points together, but that's a side thing. We were going over, let's make the claim that work or die is inherent to nature. Is that correct?
Yes.
Alrighty. I don't believe work or die is inherent to nature for the individual. You can prescribe that for the society, that a society has to create commodities or it'll like blow up. But an individual does not have to work or die unless his basic needs are gatekept.
So, okay, so in your system, so you have a set of individuals, and then you have two sets of individuals, one working to provide for those other set of individuals, the ones who are dependent on the ones providing for them. That doesn't change the fact that it's work or die. If you have a set of individuals dependent on another to fulfill their needs, that doesn't change the fact that your system is not work or die. Your system is work or die. Because even though you have an X amount of individuals that are not working and they're still getting their needs met, they're not working to fulfill their needs, that still doesn't change the fact that there are people working to fulfill their needs and other people fulfilling others' needs. That doesn't change the fact. So
allow me to circle back to where this all connects to our original thing. Remember?
Why didn't you state that in the first place?
No, I can connect all this together. What we've been talking about. Our initial thing was you wondered why it was stealing when someone sells the apple tree you planted. Correct? I posited because
no, we're talking about work or die. You still didn't even address the apple tree. You just kind of went on to define shit and go into like. You went on to define shit, and then we got on to work or die. I've asked it to you 4 times, and you still haven't addressed it. Like you've gone into bringing up your morals as an absolute, which you can't do. You've based your premise off of you've based your premise off a conclusion, which again you can't do. You have to start from ground zero. You have to start from bottom up. You can't start from top down. So
I believe I was attacking the wrong claim there. I was claiming that capitalism isn't voluntary.
Well, we're not talking about that.
I know. I apologize.
I stated the proposition, and you haven't addressed it. You've just avoided it. So again, I'm going to ask you for the 5th time now to address the 2 interdependent exchanges without bringing up like work or die or something, because that's not what we're talking about. I mean, we are now, but that wasn't off the position that I stated.
So the 2 independent exchanges. The worker has created the value because can
I stop you there?
Yes.
Okay, so my contention with that is he has not, in fact. The worker has created the product that will later be exchanged for value. According to Marx, you sell your labor, so the value that is created through the exchange with the capitalist to other people is not the workers, and this is by Marx's own standard. This is like this is his thesis on alienation, kind of debunking. Well, it really debunks the labor theory value, but you could say it debunks this too, because if you're alienated from your labor, right, when you sell your labor, you are no longer embodied in your labor. That means you are no longer creating any value that your labor had, that the value of your labor is not yours. And this is by Marx's own standard. And
I think
it's volume 3 of Das. It's not a misunderstanding. It's a complete understanding. Marx even says this in his own words in Das Kapital, I think volume 3.
I'm not really a hardcore Marxist.
Well, it doesn't matter. Your system, your ideological system, his like exploitation is really based off his theory, which again is stemmed from his labor theory of value, which again I know we're not going into right now, but yeah, his thesis on alienation. So all in all, so to conclude this, that the workers, so this is from a Marxian socialist leftist standpoint on why the workers' value isn't theirs. I brought up the contradiction on Marx's thesis on the alienation leftist point of view. So let me go to a right-winged point of view on this. The worker's value is not his value because he sold his labor, he sold his value to the capitalist. And even then, the worker, what he creates is the product. Again, that's an independent exchange. The capitalist goes to take that product to exchange for other goods and services for a profit. That profit is not the worker's profit, and because he wasn't involved within that second exchange. I know he created the product, but that doesn't mean that should be entitled to the fruits of what he entitled to the fruits of what he didn't, what he wasn't involved in.
Why not?
So, because he didn't create the exchange. I mean, if you wanted to,
finding an exchange is labor to an extent.
So look, if you want to be a worker, right, and you want to exchange your product for other things to entitle yourself to the fruits of your labor, then fine, take your labor and the product that you created and exchange that in a marketplace. But when you sell that voluntarily, first of all, you're not being stolen from, and second of all, that's not your labor. That's not your labor. It's not your value, because you already sold it off. And even then, the surplus value as defined is just profit, is not yours, because you're not involved in that exchange. And the profit was created within the exchange. I think we can agree on how the capitalistic system and how even a working system is created is that, let's say you work at McDonald's, you make a burger, that you've made the product. The capitalist takes that product in a marketplace to exchange for money. You are not involved with that second exchange, therefore that's not your profit.
This is where I talked about that I don't really want to get caught up in the minutia of LTV, because I think this kind of
we're not talking about the LTV. We're talking about independent. We're talking about two dependent exchanges that you conflate and try to make synonymous. And I've explained to you. I've explained to you from a Marxian standpoint. Okay, well, the exploitation theory conflates those, but I've already explained to you from two standpoints. I've explained to you from a Marxian standpoint. Your side. It doesn't matter if you're a Marxist or not. You follow his theory, and from a right-winged standpoint, explaining why. I've even brought up a major contradiction within that. So,
I think you're prescribing beliefs to me that don't necessarily hold.
Well, I'm not.
Do you mind if I make a proposition here?
Sure.
Go ahead and attack this. I believe that whether or not you believe it is stealing to have two exchanges where the worker is not privy to the profit created in the second, the capitalist, the existence of a capitalist, is an unnecessary draw from the system that the profit generated by exchanges could go back to the workers. If you remove the capitalists and have democratically owned workplaces, the profit within those workplaces is given to the workers. Therefore, I see the capitalist as an unnecessary parasite on an otherwise perfect system. I'm a free market anarchist. I'm a mutualist.
Okay. So you call the capitalist a parasite. For capitalists to be a parasite, the capitalist would have to be dependent on the worker, which isn't the case, and it isn't even that way, vice versa. So here, sorry, can you restate your position?
Yes, I can certainly do that. I believe that we can still have a free market system with mutually beneficial trades, and we can also get rid of the capitalist and make that system better for the people involved.
Okay, how does that address my position? Because you stated a completely new position. How does that address mine?
I'm going to be totally honest with you. I'm not great with labor theory. I know
we're not talking about the labor theory.
I know. You mind if I talk for a second?
Sure.
I'm not great when we get bogged down in microeconomics minutia. I apologize. I'll give you, point to Russian capitalist. You beat me on that point. You mind if we talk about this?
Sure, but I was hoping we could move on to the calculation problem soon, because it's the reason
I
why
am not at all interested in the calculation problem.
Well, that's a very vital point as to your system. It's really the whole reason why your system doesn't work.
I don't believe in planned economies.
It doesn't matter if there's an absence of like a market or even prices in general. If there's,
I believe in a market and prices. You know what a mutualist is?
This is interesting.
Yeah, I think you're debating me like the ANCOMs or the commies you debated earlier. I am not that.
I'm not. I've been debating you from the exploitation theory. That's not a perspective that's not a perspective exclusive to Marxism or anarcho-communism. That's a perspective to leftism and exploitation, which is what you preach. And I guess you could say, I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but did you concede that so did you implicitly say that the workers aren't being exploited, or do you agree with me as to what I said? as to how the workers aren't being exploited and how their labor isn't being stolen from them and how that it's not their labor. So did you concede to that? Because I want to make sure.
Alrighty. I believe, so I'm not going to give you a straight yes no because it's more nuanced than that. The people can malt and chat about that. I believe that the worker is the exploitation within a capitalist system. Whether or not it exists, I don't think it's necessary to prove it does for me to state that my system is better. I will concede that workers are not exploited. Boom.
Yes. Yes.
We can make a better system.
Okay, so, I mean, all right. I really don't want to get into co-ops right now. I'm not really the best at co-ops. Okay, so
That's my bullshit.
Okay. Listen. So to tease co-ops, I have absolutely no problem with co-ops. Okay, let's take a look from my system. If you want to be in Capistan and if you want to start a worker cooperative, then feel free to do so. But it's just the fact that they are mandated is my problem with it. But I don't really want to get into that because that's not really that's actually. Well, that's not what we established to talk about previously. I mean, yeah, but that's not established what we talked about previously.
So,
let's see.
You mind if I go at this from a different perspective?
What perspective specifically?
The idea that I don't like to talk in hard binary language like capitalism is or isn't exploitative. This is or isn't bad. I just like to say that the system I propose is better for the average person than the system you propose. And I would love to talk about that.
So are we going to do this from like a moral perspective or like a empirical perspective? Because like, I mean, Julian, I know he's good at morals and shit. He's been studying it for quite a while. So Julian,
I would love to talk morals with you, Julian, and give Hampton
I'll chip in every now and then. But yeah, so you two go at it. So
I believe that my system is more moral because, well, first off, let me explain my system because I haven't even done that yet. Sorry, that's on me. My ideal world, like not ideal, but 60 years in the future, this is how I picture a perfect world. Virtually identical to how we do things today. I mean, lots of different, like all the basic stuff, legal weed, decommodification of lots of basic human rights, but otherwise very similar to how we do it today. Stuff paid for by taxes, democratic government, yada, yada. I'm not stateless in the current. However, there is one extra constitutional amendment, one that states that any business must be democratically owned and operated by those who work at it. And I believe this system is more moral than a system that is privately owned.
So you believe in rights?
Yes.
Okay. Where do you think like rights come from? Like, I'm just curious.
For sure. So I'm a utilitarian. I believe that rights are precedents we set in order to maximize human utility. For example, we know this in how we do things now, or we act like we do. For example, free speech is not an absolute. Even though we say free speech is a right, we don't let people do certain things because it would hurt the positive benefits brought to society by allowing the precedent of free speech. Rights exist in order to create utility for people.
Okay, so I mean, like, I'm asking, like, what, like, theory of rights do you, like, what is your theory, like, where do rights come from?
I mean, rights, they come from a monopoly of force being able to enforce them.
So you believe in government-granted rights?
So what I think he's trying to say, like, where do, like, so, Julian, are you trying to state, like, how rights are, like, defined or how they're created?
Like, where rights come from.
Okay, so, like where they originate, or...
So I think that's two different questions. I think there's one question of how do we justify rights, and one of what defends rights.
No. We never said anything about justifying rights. If we could say justify rights, like, we could try and become government and shit, but we're not talking about that right now. That's what you bring up. But what we're talking about is, like, where do your rights come from? If you say that government grants you rights,
I'm a materialist. I believe that unless it.
Sorry,
you're laughing at my materialism.
No. I'm saying, as you said that so many times, you've been so proud about it so many times. It's funny.
I'm sorry. I'm nervous. So I'm like talking weird.
It's like I'm an ANCAP.
Yeah. So, it exists in the material world, and the only reason we have rights is because we're able to defend them. That's real politic. Read some Machiavelli.
Oh,
So rights don't exist like independence.
Rights only exist because we can defend them. If I choose to disregard your rights when I have a gun to your head, your rights don't exist anymore.
okay.
That you're okay. So I think
Define
okay.
rights for me, please.
Sure. So rights are a moral precedent we set in order to achieve desired outcomes.
To achieve outcomes, what?
A right is a moral
consequentialist.
principle defining a sanction, sanctioning a man's freedom of action in a social context. Because if a man were alone on an island, of course, like rights don't exist, right? There is no the way this works is if a man is alone on a desert island, he has no rights. Rights are just not applicable to him.
Exactly. Just as
Yes.
rights are not applicable when a gun is held to someone's head because there's no one to defend them.
But
It doesn't.
Rights are
okay.
delineations of what freedom the government should respect and protect. I believe
Okay.
in the state.
I
So
have
that's
a
the
I have a,
difference
I have a
between us. Okay.
contention to that. Like, so why would it matter if somebody's pointing a gun to your head? Do your rights just automatically go away?
No.
So, I think there's a disconnect here.
Well, no, not at all. You said that if somebody's pointing a gun to your head, you no longer have rights. So, like, what happens to those rights? Do they just magically go away? Like that makes no logical sense.
So, the idea is that we're talking about rights as a social construct because, like, we do you not think we just made up rights? Like, rights are a thing humans make up.
I mean,
no.
I'm not the best person to like do philosophy. I just focus on economics and theory.
Morality
my
and rights
perspective-
are objective.
See, my perspective. See, I'm religious, right? I'm a Christian, so I'm automatically not the person to talk about rights.
Cringe.
I know. Shut up. I appreciate it if you didn't disrespect it. So from my view and perspective, disregard everything I say, because again, you can't base your entire argument off of like religion, right? Because not everybody's religious, but I think we are given certain like unalienable rights by God, and we have those rights. And previously, I thought it was the government's job to protect those rights, but again, I now have come to the conclusion that they are in fact infringing on those rights. So that's just me.
Okay. Where do you think rights come from, Julian? Because we're not getting anywhere with me explaining it. Go ahead.
For me, I believe rights are objective. I believe that a right is a moral principle defining and sanctioning a man's freedom of action in a social context.
Why are rights objective?
Why rights are objective?
What gives rights a truth value?
Okay, so to get into this, let me pull up my notes because I didn't have my notes up this entire time. I've been dicking around.
Oh yeah, just to say, I have something to state for market socialism, which we can get into after this.
For sure. Go ahead, Julian, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, for sure. I gotta find it. I have a bunch of random Google Docs. Anyways. Okay, dude, I'm choking so hard. I'm not gonna cap. I'm super nervous.
Dude, me too.
Okay, so
I was hoping you were gonna be like believing in the LTV because I would have absolutely fucking dicked you on that.
I think LTV, in the context of like how Marx actually wrote it, is really easy to poke holes in right now. But I think it can be reformed in a way that's useful.
Well, like okay, so like even modern day Marxists, like I know that I forgot his name, but there's like a Marxist.
Richard Wolff.
Like, yeah, him. He doesn't even believe in the labor theory value. Like
I've listened to he gave like a 4-hour speech on that, and I actually watched it yesterday. He believes in the labor theory of value in a totally different way than the way Marx spelled it out.
the cost theory of value.
I've heard it said as that, and also the value theory of labor, that people do labor to produce value.
No. Okay, so the value theory of labor is dumb as fuck because that's just the labor theory of value. But the cost theory of value is so the cost theory of value still couldn't be applied into an ideology or couldn't be like thought of one like at that time. I don't even think now because like the cost theory of value took into externalities like the cost of production, like in supply and demand. But Adam Smith never knew how to like formulate it into a theory. But if he believes in that, that's more based, but like the labor theory of value is just a more dumbed down and even more wrong version of the cost theory of value. So
There's nuggets of truth, but I don't think it largely applies to a 21st century context.
I mean, if you want to, if Julian is struggling to find his notes, I mean, we can go in. I have a contention with like market socialism.
I would
Honestly,
love
at
to
this
do
point,
that.
it's kind of like a 1v1 between you guys. So like,
Julian, I still love you.
it's okay. We can set up another time for us too.
I would love to talk moral philosophy with you at some point, Julian. But
I mean, we
we'll get
can
into
go
this
in this
again.
debate, but like,
I mean,
actually, I would.
I'll kind of mute myself and act like I'm not here.
No, Julian.
Stick around. You got to get your practice.
Yeah, this debate was. I was originally hoping you were gonna do all the talking, and I was just gonna chip in. That was the whole plan.
Yeah, this is
I
two first-time
suck at
debaters,
debating.
Julian.
Oh, I'm not a first-time debater. I'm just 0-2.
Rough. I'm 0-1 if I don't turn this around.
Okay, so my contention. So this is literally my first. Like, I haven't really looked into market socialism, so don't expect me to do anything fancy here. So I have an excerpt from. Or a critique on Mises, a critique on market socialism. So Ludwig von Mises. There's an excerpt here on a critique of market socialism, and he basically says that market socialism is a contradiction. So his contention was that like how socialism is the public ownership of like capital goods implies public control of investment and financial decisions. So private speculation in financial markets and the payout of private like dividends are thus abolished, and as a result, the economy is no longer directed by private capitalists and entrepreneurs. So a lack of private investors and speculators means political control is required to determine rates of investment in public enterprises, which would be less efficient. But
Do you mind if I spell out my system?
Sure.
So the way capital investment, like startup funds, would come within my system would be I don't think it takes the form of a centrally planned economy. You could argue this is centrally planned, but I disagree. It would be a central bank that sets it has an interest rate only necessary to cover the people that don't pay off their loans and to operate the bank, right? Any business owner could go to the bank and it wouldn't be based on, do we like this idea? Do we think it's moral? It would simply be based on, do we believe you can pay back your loan? So with extremely low interest rates, you could get a loan for your worker cooperative, you and your 4 buddies. If you're not able to pay back the loan, they default, they would seize your assets.
Why would you pay the loan in the first place if it's just going to be paid back if you can't afford it?
Well, because they take all your assets and you don't get your business anymore.
So sounds pretty authoritarian to me. I mean,
And that's just how banks work.
Okay, but
Do you know what a bank is? I'm sorry, I'm making fun of you.
Sorry, okay. See, I'm not. I see. Like, I haven't debated a market socialist before. I need to formulate like critiques on it because I see. I have had 20 like, I've had like 27 debates. All of them have been with communists. So I've gotten very, very good at debating communists.
Dude, market socialism based.
Market socialism just sounds like spicy capitalism.
Honestly, that's how I like to pitch it to my relatives. It's just capitalism without a capitalist class.
Sounds like state capitalism to me.
No, because it's not owned by the state.
I mean, if it's heavily, never mind.
But like, I feel like we're getting caught up on this bank. Do you want to talk about that?
No, I don't know what to say. I'm okay. Like, so I was hoping like I was hoping I was gonna get you on this, but like, I don't know where to go from here. I'm sorry.
This is what happened to me in the beginning. I didn't really have an idea what we were talking about when we get caught up in the minutia of that.
No.
So I want to talk about my stuff.
No, the thing is, I brought up like beforehand the debate, like weeks before this debate, because we've been planning this for weeks, right? I brought up beforehand exploitation and stuff, and I brought up like how like conflicts like on the theory. I'm bringing up something completely new that I definitely shouldn't have bring it up because I don't know how to defend it. Like, we both agreed on this, so
I actually want to talk about that. Do you mind if I go in?
Talk about what exactly?
I think this is my fault because when I pitched the debate to you, I didn't pitch it in the correct terms for us to have a conducive discussion. I said I believe capitalism is exploitative when I should have added qualifiers like I believe exploitation takes the form of it being worse for the average person than a different system.
Well, I mean, by definition, that's not true. Like, exploitation is just defined as treating someone unfairly for like one's own personal gain. Where does like, I guess I could see where morals come in with that. Like, the way you perceive unfairness is subjective. But like, if people are like better off, or from your perspective, that doesn't really like counter exploitation.
Well, do you believe exploitation is a moral definition? Because fairness is moral.
Of course, but the way people perceive it is subjective. So you can't objectively say that something is exploitive.
You can empirically demonstrate that certain things make people happier.
Okay, but how does that
How does that
show
tie
that?
in?
Yeah, how does that
My
tie in?
system makes people happier than a privately owned system.
Well, how can you say so if it has never been like truly implemented?
Because workers under worker co-ops are happier. If you have a contention with why you believe that wouldn't scale up, we can talk about that. But
well, I wasn't here to debate worker co-ops, so I mean, we weren't originally here to do that, so we're not going to get into that.
I think, like, I'm going to apologize for that. I pitched this debate as capitalism is exploitative, and I should have pitched it as my system is more.
I mean,
moral
I
than
laid
yours.
out the foundation weeks prior, and I did it again before this debate, and you agreed to it. So is it really a fault on your part? Is it a fault on the way you? It's not like. So I think what you wanted to do is you wanted to shift the way we talked about this, or like so what I just said was kind of vague, but if you understand what I mean, like the way we talk about it, like from your perspective, from like a moral perspective, is not the way like we debate, is not the way like traditionally how you debate exploitation. Like from a moral perspective is a completely new way. I've never seen any communist out of the 27 debates I've had. Not one communist have brought up the morality of exploitation. It's just the fact that the workers are being stolen from. That's really it. So demonstrating like morals into it is a completely new subject, and is why like I think playing it into to talking about it and stating like morals as a position really couldn't work, because your morals would have to be an absolute. And again, I know, Julian, you're an objectivist, but yeah.
I definitely zoned out, so I don't even know what you said.
Yeah, good.
This is something I want to bring up. We keep talking about it as though all judgments aren't moral. Anything that can't be demonstrated scientifically is a moral distinction.
What?
Yeah.
What is that? What is that? That made what is?
Okay, let me explain.
That made no grammatical sense.
Anything you can't demonstrate empirically, right, is a subjective experience. Like you're subjectively.
It doesn't matter if it's empirically. It has to be an absolute to be objective. Like the sky is blue. That's an absolute. But like you can't, even if you empirically demonstrated that more people are happier under worker cooperatives. That's not held as an absolute unless it's 100%. And even then, you couldn't testify 100% of people. Like you can.
I don't think it's necessary. I think 51% are happier proves it's a better system.
Okay, well, we're not talking. We're not going to get into democracy. I hate democracy, but
that is unbased, bro.
I don't care. Actually, like I don't like democracy, but if again in my system, if you want to have a democratic workplace, be my guest. But to democratically decide if something is an absolute is mind-bogglingly the most dumbest shit. Because to decide something if it's an absolute, like this is from an objectivist point of view, there can't be contradiction. You have to demonstrate it like through epistemology and metaphysics without contradiction as an absolute. Like you're able to do that. Like the sky is blue, right? You're able to do that.
I'm not stating that like.
Okay. Can I finish? But to demonstrate how to demonstrate how the how capitalism is exploitive, and to demonstrate how people being happier under worker cooperatives is an absolute and it's true across everyone, is you can't do that because there's always going to be at least one to 10,000 people, right, that'll say differently, and and that's contradiction. So and opposition.
Here's again where I think we're falling apart.
Well, we're not really falling apart. I'm just stating how like you can't demonstrate like morals to be an absolute when not everyone has the same morals. I know, Julian, I'm sorry, but yeah.
But like morals are the basis of politics. You can't pull like I would argue we have different morals as an out when morals are the basis of politics.
I mean,
that is what we're debating.
I mean,
economics.
No, we're not. We're debating theory.
Economics theory is an extension of morals.
How?
Because do you not believe that when you when someone strives to get something, it's because they morally believe? Like, actually,
no, they do it out of own self-interest.
When someone advocates for something in a political realm, do you believe they advocate for it Why? Like,
Well, because okay, so you can't say objectively that it's entirely stemmed from morals. Like, what if they do it because it's in their self-interest, right? Like, you can't say everything is a causality of like morals. So
I believe that when we advocate for politics, politics is a reflection of our
okay,
morals.
but just because you believe so doesn't make it so.
Why am I
Of
wrong?
course, I demonstrated how you were wrong, saying I literally just said it that morals isn't a direct absolute causality to decisions when you have interest, like self-interest, like we do things like I get a drink of water because I'm thirsty. That's out of interest and that's out of like need. That's not because of morals, right? If I advocate for something, I'm not, even if I am doing it out of morals, it doesn't matter because not everyone does. People do it out of self-interest. I am morally pro-life, but I advocate for pro-choice because it is in my interest to do so. And there's no way you can demonstrate how that's like how do you oppose that? Because
Do you think
again,
when you talk about politics, you're talking about how you want society to be?
yes.
Do you believe that's not an extension of what you believe society would be best as?
How does that correlate to morals?
That's what morals are, is how you believe society would be best.
No, morals. God. Dude, I can't. Okay, I'm not good at philosophy. Okay, so let me backtrack here before I move on. So how would you demonstrate that morals is the reasoning or the causality for why we act?
So, morals. Why is morals the causality for our action?
Like direct, like an absolute, like why is it an absolute causality?
So, as an absolute, why are morals directions for our action? Well, morals are an extension of evolutionary biology, which can be proven empirically.
Okay, so can you answer my question?
Can you ask it again? I'm getting.
Okay, so how does morals deter or how does morals determine the causality, or why is morals the causality of our actions as an absolute?
Because when we act in the world, we strive to make the world how we want it to be.
Okay, and that okay. So I'm not saying morals isn't the only. I'm not saying morals isn't like that doesn't like contribute to that. I'm saying like it's not the only thing because we act out of interest too. We act out of need, right? So there's like different things that play in, and that you're completely ignoring. You're saying, oh, we act solely out of morals, right? We better ourselves solely out of morals. That's not true at all. We better ourselves out of interest, right? We better ourselves out of need. Again, I get a glass of water. I drink water because I'm thirsty. That's not a causality of morals. That's not even a causality of interest because you need it, right?
I think it is. Actually, no. I can hit you with it. I think it is. I think you think it is morally better to not want to die of thirst.
How? So not wanting to die is how does that have anything to do with morals?
Do you know what antinatalism is?
That is completely.
There are people that want to die. It is a moral judgment to seek death.
That just sounds like people being really suicidal and making it fancier.
Yeah, sure. But is that not a moral judgment to want to die? And you want to live. So that naturally follows that you morally want to drink water to fit your moral premise that you want to live.
Okay, again. Okay. All right. I see where you're at.
Interest are morals on an individual level.
I see where you at. Okay. But again, that doesn't okay. So that doesn't demonstrate like why morals why we act out of morals as an absolute, keyword absolute, because again I've listed you different variables that you haven't addressed. So we act, okay, so I agree with you. We act out of morals, right? Does interest and need not matter?
I believe self-interest is a moral decision.
Okay.
Yeah, when you make the decision to act self-interest.
Okay, so we're gonna have to make a distinction because what we're using here is morals as an umbrella term.
I think we are. Yeah. We are using morals.
We're gonna have to be more defined. Okay.
How about the word choices?
Okay, I can't think, and I have to go take a piss.
You want to go do that? I'll talk with Julian for a bit.
Well, I mean, I do want to end the debate because like we're not really we're off topic. We're way off topic. We're not even talking about where we're supposed to be. In verbum, I cannot hear you.
Yeah. Oh damn.
Actually, can I bring up one more thing before we end?
Sure.
You know how I posited? Like, first off, I want to apologize for framing this in the wrong sequence when I proposed it. That's on me.
Well, I mean, I think you completely What I think you did is not, you didn't. So I stated a proposition and you went off that proposition. You haven't stated a proposition for exploitation, not once in this debate, and that's not a bad thing, right? I kept asking you questions and I took the lead. Like not like in the debate of winning, but you know what I mean, like taking the lead of like, you know, like, yeah. So
No, you beat me.
I did that. So yeah. So
Yeah.
you didn't state a proposition, right? And so you just well, I wouldn't even say you addressed my proposition. You kept trying to move on to what you were trying to say without addressing mine, which again, that doesn't get us anywhere, right? So
I think I see the problem. I thought we were operating on the same presuppositions, and we weren't.
well, I know, and I made it clear how we're not, and you still kept trying to argue on your presupposition.
Because I was trying to convince you of my presuppositions.
I know, but
regardless-
that's not what we're talking about. We're not debating our like, presuppositions. We're talking about this exploitation theory. But I'm guessing this does conclude our debate.
I would love to bring up one more thing, though.
Okay, yeah, go
This
ahead.
is actually something I was really interested in bringing up, not as a debate, but as an actual discussion. I think that the different conceptions of freedom between left libertarians and right libertarians are really telling for the way we see the world.
Like,
You want me to do it?
like
So
what
I
is-
think that ultimately right libertarians see freedom as freedom from coercion, while left libertarians see freedom as freedom of choice.
I would say that holds true for both. I mean, left libertarians don't want to be quote unquote coerced into working for a capitalist from your standpoint, and right-leaning libertarians don't want to be coerced into doing anything else, and it's the same. So I think synonymously,
I think left libertarians do have room for coercion within their thing, and I think right libertarians have room for
well,
not
depending on
giving-
how extreme you get, like I'm an ANCAP, right? So there's absolutely no room for coercion. Like let's not get into
No,
debate
no.
for that, but like let's just
believe-
assume that you agree with me, right? There's no like room for coercion in ANCAP. Again, this is based on the assumption that you agree with me.
Yeah, I don't want to debate like voluntary capitalism. We already
Yeah, I know.
moved on that one.
I already said that this is based on the assumption that you agree with me. So
But do you think that like I think an individual has more opportunities for choice in a system based on the principles of left libertarianism, but is more free from coercion based on the principles of right libertarianism.
okay, so why can't we have the freedom to choose to start a business, right? Why can't, like, if I want to start a business, why can't I?
I think on an individual level, that is a freedom you are stopping by not allowing people to do that. However, on a societal level, by enforcing democratic workplaces, you create more freedom of
Why
choice.
is the collective? So you talk a lot about the individual, and then so why is the collective more important than the individual? If you think the individual is the thing that matters, like what you're saying, what you're basing your system off is just the interest of the collective. The collective is means nothing. The collective, it's the individual that is the individual is the only thing that matters. So what if it's in the individual's best interest and moral interest, right, to start a private business, and why do they have to participate in a worker cooperative? What if it's in their moral interest and their like
On an
interest?
individual level, starting a private business does not infringe on the freedom of others. However, when you create a societal system
So businesses aren't coercive.
on an individual level, well,
Well,
actually, I would disagree
you-
with that.
Individual level. Look,
So if like let's say you lived in a mutualist society, everything's democratically owned, right? If you created one privately owned business, that wouldn't infringe on anyone's freedom until they worked for you, and then they would just go work for a different democratically owned
how
business.
can it? Okay, you know what? Okay, we just had this debate. All right. Well, I guess we could
Let
have
me step
another.
back to what I was saying. I believe you have more freedom of choice, but less freedom from coercion under left libertarian principles, but less freedom of choice and more freedom from coercion under right libertarian principles.
It's an interesting take. Well, I don't really know what to say. All right, I guess this concludes our debate. So, shall we do closing statements?
Yes, I will go first. I would like to apologize for going into this debate, assuming presuppositions and then thinking we wouldn't debate them.
Okay. I'd like to say that your presuppositions is really just a misinterpretation and trying to guide the debate where it did not belong to your like ideas, right? To fit like your narrative. I'm not saying that you change the debate, right? But I'm saying that you wanted to do so to fit your narrative, so you can have so you could win, right? But
I assumed we were working within my moral framework, and I apologize.
okay, yeah. So, and I explained to you why working in a specific moral framework and assuming it's an absolute is just can't work. So, yeah, yeah. So,
Oh
do
God,
you
I have a
think you
contention
won
with
this?
that, but we're done.
Okay, do you think you won the debate?
I lost, but I think that's a result of me poorly explaining shit when we got started.
I lost. I'm 0-3. Let's go.
I still
Julian.
love you, Julian.
Okay. I wouldn't say it's a reason because you poorly explained things. I mean, I understood for the most part what you were saying. You just worded it differently. What you explained, you just brought up definitions that were irrelevant to exploitation theory.
State surveillance.
Julian, shut the fuck up. So what you brought up is just definitions and other things that are completely irrelevant to exploitation theory and never directly addressed my points without bringing up a whole new position. So, yeah.
I would love to debate one of you guys on moral philosophy because that's kind of what this ended up turning into in a shitty way.
All right. Well, I guess this concludes our debate, Jillian.
Hey, Tanner, that's your name, right?
Yes, Tanner.
I'm going. Oh, Tanner. Sorry. I'm going to California soon. So, once I get back from California, like August 11th is when I get back. We can set up a time to debate morals
That would be great.
and like rights and stuff like that.
Okay. So yeah, Jillian, no, you're getting this dub. You're not going 0-3.
I'm not counting it for anything. I'm still 0-2, dude.
No, take away your loss to me because I was just completely, dude. Like you stood no chance against me.
Okay, I'll let this cancel out my loss against you.
Bet. So you're only 0-1. Perfect.
Let's go.
All right. Well, I guess this concludes the debate. Goodbye.